Hello guys, and in today's video I'm going to be covering how you can play against the Hartlaub Charlick Gambit as white and just completely refute it. I've been seeing that this has been gaining a lot of popularity, so without further ado, let's go straight into it. So after d4, e5, this is the England Gambit. I recommend you take on e5, practically a free pawn. As you'll see, we'll just be playing for a pawn up advantage in these positions, which should be more than enough to win. And after the move d6, this is the Hartlaub Charlick Gambit, so I'll just switch it to black's perspective and I'll show what black wants from this position. So if we take on d6, the engine is okay with this. The engine calls this like, well, plus 1.3, but I don't necessarily say this is, I wouldn't necessarily say that this is best move, because after bishop takes d6, I'll show you a variation. Knight to f3, knight c6, knight c3, bishop g4, e3. These are all sensible moves from white. You just want to go bishop e2, neutralize the bishop. But as you can see, black is long castling very quickly, and a common move for white is in fact to castle here. But this just blunders the queen after rook d1, bishop h2. After taking on f3, then taking on h2, and then we win the queen. And even though white has rook and a bishop for a queen, the king is very exposed, so we can go queen h4, king g1, knight to f6. This knight can come into e5, and then we have a knight coming to g4, f2 and h2 are weak, and this king is basically just toast in this variation. So instead, if white plays bishop d2, we can just go knight to f6, and after white castles, he probably thinks, okay, this is fine. It's probably not, actually not, because after move h5, we're trying to play h4 and h3, just weaken white's kingside. After h3, which is a seemingly normal move, bishop f3, and as you can see, this is getting very bad, and white's on the verge of losing already. So from these variations, you can see that black's getting all the initiative when you take on d6. So instead, I recommend that you play the move knight to f3. The main idea of this is to get the bishop to g5, get this bishop outside the pawn chain. So get the bishop outside the pawn chain and then play e3 or e4. I usually recommend move e3 because it's safer. And if you have the pawn on e4, it can because the knight's on f3, and you can't really support the pawn except with the knight on c3. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter anyway. So after d takes e5, we just trade queens. We go knight takes e5, threatening f7, which is up a full pawn. You can just continue with normal development here. You're just completely winning. So after knight to f3, the most common move in the Lichess database is knight c6. But as we'll see, this is the exact same response. We have the exact same response to this as to bishop g4. Before we look at these though, we know our plan is bishop g5 on almost every move that black plays. So let's just look at h6 really quickly. So here we can just play knight c3, and after knight c6, attacking this pawn and threatening knight takes e5 or d takes e5, we can go bishop f4. Now if black takes, we just take, and we take on e5, and this is just winning again. After g5, black does get to take back the pawn, but as you can see, his kingside is just very badly weakened. And we also have a really, we have a lot of advantage in development. We have 3 pieces out. Meanwhile, black's moved his knight twice, pushed a pawn to g5 and g4, played h6. And these are not good moves for black. So now we just play queen d2. After bishop d7, we can castle queenside. And there's this idea, like I highlighted, of just pushing e4 and pushing f4 as well. Because this knight's on d4, it supports the f3 square, so en passant we can just go g takes f3 back, and there's just no issues. White's just absolutely dominant in this position. We just have to play actively as white, and you should win this quite easily. So now we'll look at knight c6 and bishop g4. So after knight c6, bishop g5, like I've said, I'll play a great move for this. So if the move f6 is played, so this is surprisingly common. It would probably be for someone who hasn't seen this knight to f3, bishop g5 variation before. So we will just take on f6. After knight takes f6, I will play knight c3, and after h6 we can take on f6 and just play e3. Here we can go bishop e2 or bishop d3. Main issue is that the light squares around black's king are very weak. There is a threat of bishop not necessarily a threat, but black can try to go bishop g4 and take on f3. But what you have to realize is that, I mean, black would just be giving up the bishop here in this sense as well. There's also this pawn on c7 is very weak. So at some point, once you've defended the b2 pawn, you can always bring the knight to d5 or knight to b5. Bishop can also come to c4 because of this weak a2 g8 diagonal. But h6 isn't the most common move, and it doesn't pose any issues either. The main move is bishop e7. Now after e3, castles. You can play bishop d3 again here, but bishop g4, castle, and in fact, black has knight to e5, and now I have to go bishop e2. This isn't losing by any means for white, but why would you put the bishop on d3 and then put the bishop on d3 and then put it back to e2? And yeah, let's just not give that psychological advantage to black. So we'll just play bishop e2 immediately. Bishop g4, castle, h6, bishop f6, queen f6. Now we have this nice move, knight d5. If black takes on b2, now we have rook b1. Because this bishop's moved, bishop on c8's moved off of the c8 square, now b7 is very weak. After the bishop moves back, rook takes b7. We're taking c7, we're taking complete control of the 7th rank, and black's actually in a huge amount of trouble, especially with this weakened diagonal as well. Instead of bishop takes b2, it's also the move bishop e6, just an example of a move where black doesn't actually take on b2. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you can play c3 or c4 here.
Hey guys, just wanted to say that my audio software didn't really do well here and it kind of cut out, so the rest of the video I'll just be doing a quick voiceover, and I hope that's okay. So as I was mentioning, you can play c3 or c4 here, but I recommend the move c4. c4 is much more supports the knight on d5. Or you can also play c3 like I've shown with the arrow, so you go knight to f4 and then you centralize the rooks, bring one of the rooks to d1, probably rook a d1, because you just want to protect the vulnerable f2 square. Then you can bring the bishop to d3, and now you can see all of the light square weaknesses which are around black's king, such as g6 and e6, and you can see that these are also 4 king squares. So now let's go back and we'll look at bishop g4. Now we react the exact same way with bishop g5, and after f6 we take on f6 and knight takes f6, and as I've shown, this really isn't an issue for white. We'll just play knight c3 developing, and after knight c6 move e3, and I think this is very similar to the previous variation we've looked at, and I don't really see much for black. We'll go back to bishop g5 and now queen d7. Queen d7 is the move you'll face the most often, as we've seen in the bishop g4 line as well. So if they just play d takes e5, remember we're always happy to trade queens. So now we can just play queen takes d7, and we're just up a clean pawn, right? So now you can see that the weakness of the c7 pawn, but then you can also see the weakness of the c2 pawn. I didn't cover it in much depth in this video, but I'd recommend something like maybe c3, knight d2, knight c4, and you can fianchetto the bishop like I'm showing in the video. I think this is overall completely fine for white, sorry. Yeah. So now let's look at e takes d6 and bishop takes d6, when we're kind of forced to, because otherwise d takes e5 is played. So now, as we've seen the idea of knight e4 and knight b5, we want to get the c-pawn onto the d6 square so that it becomes an isolated queen's pawn, and then we can easily apply pressure via like bishop h4 and bishop g3, or just by bishop f4 immediately. So if a random move like rook a7, like I'm showing in the video, we can just play bishop f4 here, and I think we're already bishop f4 and after d5, or just e3 actually. So now after d5 we can just play rook d1, we can pile pressure onto this pawn, play bishop d3, castles, and after knight d4 we're just blockading the IQP, and this is a really great position. You can get the bishop to b3 as well, or you can get the bishop to f3 via e2, and there's just pressure on the IQP. And now we'll look at black's most intuitive option, which is going f6, and now... Oh, sorry. Let's first look at knight e7. Oh, apparently not. Okay. We'll look at f6, and after g5 and bishop g3, as we've seen, we bring the bishop back to g3. We're trying to damage black's pawn structure and give him an IQP. And although f6 and g5 seems to have improved black's position, the light squares around black's king have become very weak, and there's potential for the e8 h5 diagonal to be exploited. And overall, this is a great position. If black ever takes on g3, then h6, g3, and the h7 pawn is forever weak, and we've just got the h-file, so we've just activated a piece for free. We'll see h5, threatening h4, so we take on d6, and after c takes d6, we go queen d2. And as you can see by the arrows, we want a long castle, add even more pressure to that pawn, put the bishop on c4, and just clamp down on d5, so we'll win the pawn very soon. There's this move queen f7 as well, which is very interesting. It's trying to avoid any queen trades, obviously. But now we'll just play knight b5, attacking the bishop. If black is nice, then we'll just take. Now if bishop c5, there's this nice move queen d5, because if queen takes d5, there's knight takes c7 check, and there's a fork of the king and queen, sorry. And we're just up a pawn, as you know here. Black's king is stuck in the center, and we should win this quite quickly. I think the most intuitive move is this maneuver with bishop b4, c3, bishop a5, still defending c7. Now we'll just play e3. As we've seen, e3 is probably the most common move, because pushing the pawn to e4 can sometimes create a weakness for black to target. And now we've just got these well-coordinated knights, a knight on d4. We're threatening knight takes c6 if black doesn't defend that. Now we have queen b3, attacking b7 and attacking f7, sorry. Now if a random move is played, like queen e7, we take here, and after knight takes e6, rook takes b7, queen takes e7, knight takes e7, we're just up 2 clean pawns. We can long castle, defending the b2 pawn, and as you can see, even a6 is hanging now. I don't know if I mentioned that in my original voiceover, but yeah, this is completely lost for black at this point, and this should be quite easy to win. Not too sure what I was talking about in the original one. And now let's look at bishop g4. Now bishop g4 is probably something more intuitive. I think someone who's studied some of the theory would be more likely to play knight c6, but anyways, we get into a similar position. It's just that the bishop is now on g4, which is slightly more actively placed, arguably. We'll just look at knight to e7. So obviously, because the knight's not on c6, we can't play knight b5 because queen takes b5 would just be played. So instead, this time we'll play the move knight to e4, because we still want to damage black's pawn structure and get that IQP for us to target. So now after bishop b4 and c3, if black trades queens, as we know, this is just trivially winning for white. And then after move bishop a5, there's this crazy move bishop f6. You don't need to remember this. Basically the idea is if g takes f6, then knight takes f6, and we win the bishop on g4 because of the fork. Or you can just play b4 after bishop b6 e3. You're just up a pawn for practically no compensation. Now let's go back to knight c6. Just remember, just a mid-video warning, that you don't necessarily have to memorize all these lines. As long as you understand the motifs, then you'll be able to play these naturally in no time. Now here, there's an alternative move with knight b5, which is okay, and it requires a bit less memorization, but I think knight to e4 is slightly more critical. And if bishop e7, as we know it, once again, queen trades always favour us, almost always, unless we're losing materialize, but I mean, I don't think black actually threatens anything, so we'll be fine. And yeah, this is just, as we've seen a lot of times, bishop b4 c3, and again, the queen trade just really does not help black, because even with this fractured pawn structure. As we can see now, the g file is open. Our two bishops just become absolute monsters, attacking c7, attacking f7. We can attack g7 as well with our rook after rook g1. This structure is nothing to be afraid of. We are just incredibly active, and black is struggling to even breathe in this position. This idea is for knight c5 as well, attacking d7 and b7, and this is just miserable. Yeah, and now I'm showing that in the arrows, which is what I did in the original voiceover. There's ideas of rook d8. I'm not 100% sure about ideas of rook d8, but I think once you've got the bishop on c4, then it's really hard for black to even alleviate any pressure by trying to get a rook trade because of the pressure you've got on the f7 pawn. Now there's this move queen e6, which is really interesting, and I'm just going to show it from black's perspective. After c3, there's this move queen e6. Now the engine recommends the move c takes b4. I think, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, sorry, he recommends h3, hg4, queen g4, and now after queen d3, queen g4, and then you take everything on h7 and queenside castle. But I don't necessarily like this position for white because it's slightly dangerous. So instead, I'll just recommend knight ed2 instead. Now if bishop f3, we can just go knight takes f3 because there's no actual pin. Because you've played c3, right? If we'd played knight g3, then there is the pin, and this pawn structure is okay, but we don't need to fracture our structure right now, do we? So we'll just go knight d2. After bishop d6, after bishop d6 is the move queen b3, attacking b7 and attacking e6. We've already seen this motive before when the queen was on f7, right, and the pawn was on f6, and it's really good just for trading queens. If black does actually ever take on b3, we can just go a takes b3, and once again, if black helps us develop our rook, it's just very bad. Once again, the bishop can just come back to g3. We can go h takes g3. We can get two active rooks. Double pawns don't mean anything because we're just so active, and we can play b4 and b5 as well. Gain complete access to the d4 square, and we've got the a2 to g8 diagonal, which is completely uncontested. f7 will be a permanent weakness in the game as well, and of course we're just up a pawn. I don't see black if black has anything. Now we can't take on b7 if black refuses to trade queens because black gets counterplay with rook b8, queen a6, and rook takes b2. Instead here we'll long castle. Long castle. And I think bishop e6 is the most natural move attacking the queen. And now we have this nice move, knight c4. So I'll show you what happens if we don't play this. If we go queen c2, f6 bishop h4 can be played. And something like f6 and bishop e3, bishop takes a2 can be played. And I'm just playing some random moves as white here just to show you how black's initiative can develop. In this position as black, I'd be looking for moves like a5, a4, and a3, just exploding up in the center. The bishop can come back to f7 for basically free. If you ever go b3, there is a bishop a3 check, and then you have to block with the queen on b2, and you'll be losing there. So I don't recommend this. I recommend the move knight c4 instead. So now we're threatening to take on d6. If bishop takes c4, then queen takes c4. Once again, we have the two bishops. We're up a pawn, and I think black poses no issues. Instead, after a random move, let's say, we're threatening to queen takes b7 now, and rook b8 might look scary, but now because we've got an extra attack on the d6 bishop, now after knight takes d6, which is a really nice move, black cannot play queen takes d6 because the rook is on d6 now. The rook is on d1 now, so he'll have to play c takes d6. And after queen takes d7 and bishop takes d7 is just rook takes d6. So we'll look at king takes d7, then there's bishop f4, and the d6 pawn is forever weak. And I think this is actually just winning because after d5 there's the move e4, and black is just collapsing with his king in the middle. So I think this might be it. Oh, we'll just discuss the idea with bishop c4 and queen c4. Sorry. So I'll just basically our rook on d1 is targeting the queen on d7. This is. Oh, sorry. I think I'm just looking at this in more detail. Okay, so we'll look at some concrete moves now. So after knight to e7 and e3, once again, the idea with f6 and g5 allows our bishop just to tuck back to g3. And now there's even a relative pin, on the d file. So if bishop takes g3, just rook takes d7 and we win the queen. Now the idea once again is to play bishop takes d6, c takes d6. Now the move knight to f5 is good because black wants to remove our two bishops. The two bishops are very good in a middle game and especially in an end game. And now we can go bishop d3, bishop e4. It's a very, very nice maneuver. But I'll quickly mention that if bishop takes g3, knight and queen d6, there's this idea of bishop b5 now. So it's the idea of just attacking the knight on c6. Bishop b5 works here now because of the relative pin once again. This pin is just absolutely really just annoying black. After the move a6, I don't recommend bishop takes a6. The reason is because if queen takes a6, we're winning because of this rook lift, right? And now black is stuck in a mating net, and we can threaten queen to a8 very, very quickly. But the thing is, after knight to e5, even if we take on b7 and go queen b3 and king c8, there's no concrete threats, and even though we have 3 pawns for the piece, black can quickly get very active, and I'm not so sure that white's winning anymore. So instead, what we're going to do, however tempting it is, we're just going to take on c6. After queen takes c6 and b takes c6, as you can see, I've highlighted loads of arrows. Black is stuck defending this miserable, completely lost endgame, where he has 2 double isolated pawns on c6, an isolated pawn on a6, and this horrible majority, which is going to do absolutely nothing on f6, g7 and h6, which just can't advance whatsoever. There's no pass pawn which can actually be made. We can bring the rooks in through the 4th rank. We can bring our knight in to d4 to attack b7. We can play knight to e6, knight to f5, and pressure g7. And yeah, I think that's the best that black can get in this variation. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you can destroy anyone who plays this unsound opening as black.